Sometimes on my channel I do some little SCP community surveys. Fun stuff that people could just vote on, you know, to see what the popular opinion is. And working at the Foundation seems to be something that I come up with a lot. These little scenarios that if you were an SCP Foundation employee, what would happen and stuff. Interesting in my opinion and kind of fun. This is a video by SCP Explained about what it would be like to work at the SCP Foundation. I think it's going to be pretty good, guys. Let's react to it.
Are you bored with where you work? There's no shame in it. A lot of people are. Or maybe you hit a run of bad luck recently.
I've had
got
terrible
furloughed
jobs
or let
before.
go from your old job.
Okay,
it's a stressful
that
time,
happens.
and you're probably
Oh
asking,
my.
what type of career would be right for me? Maybe you want some excitement, like chasing down escaped monsters from high-security containment facilities.
That is
Maybe
pretty
you want
exciting.
something a little more intellectually engaging, like joining some of the world's finest minds in finding the answers to mysterious ancient secrets.
It would be
or maybe
very
you're the
interesting line
ambitious
of work.
type.
Dangerous,
Someone with
but
plenty of
interesting.
#hustle. Perhaps nothing would satisfy you more than climbing to the very top of the corporate ladder into a position that would make you one of the most powerful human beings on the planet. If any or even all of these sound like they describe you, then maybe your perfect career would be working for the SCP Foundation, an incredibly powerful top-secret organization devoted to securing, containing, and protecting the supernatural across the globe and beyond. You could be one of the thousands of little turning cogs that keeps this organization running and keeping the world
like a
safe
maintenance
from
guy.
supernatural
I don't know if I'd
threats.
better be a
But
researcher.
You can't even get into your local country club.
Or
how can you find your
agent.
way into one of the most elite groups in
MTF.
history? Well, we can't pretend it'll be easy, but it's definitely not impossible.
Right.
Today, we're going to give you
How
a
do
primer
you
on the
get
potential
a
ways
job
you
at
could
the
join the
Foundation?
proud ranks of the SCP Foundation.
Okay.
With help from files and evidence across the Foundation database, we figured out many of the different positions available at the SCP Foundation.
Okay.
And what actions and qualifications you may need to make the cut. Though we
Physique?
can't promise you won't be terminated, vaporized, eaten, or sent to a terrifying pocket
Hey,
dimension.
I wonder if
in
the pay's
process.
pretty good.
First, it's
right?
vital to know exactly what
Hazard
you're
pay.
applying for.
Sure.
The SCP Foundation is a complex group, but
Okay.
thankfully for us, it does have a command structure that's pretty easy to understand.
Right.
This will help us figure out the positions on offer.
I mean, you gotta
so
think
can
they'd be
update your
pretty
LinkedIn profile
organized at
accordingly.
the Foundation.
There are two main
All they
categories
have
of
to
jobs at
handle.
play here. We have security clearance categories, which
Yeah.
range from 0 to 5, and we have personnel classifications,
Blah, blah, blah,
which
blah,
run
blah,
from
blah,
A
blah.
class to E class. Let us break it down for you.
'Kay.
Level 0 security clearance covers jobs like logistics and janitorial
Sure.
services.
Very,
They're
very
the lowest entry level
low,
of any Foundation jobs, and you'll basically be
clearance
told
level.
nothing. You might as
Right.
well be cleaning the bathrooms at a local gym.
Yeah.
Level 1 covers most of the same jobs as Level 0, except that these staff members perform their jobs in closer proximity to anomalies.
Alright.
So you'll still be cleaning bathrooms,
The pace a little
but
higher.
at greater risk to your life.
Ah,
Level 2
sort
is
of
the
tentacles.
most common level of clearance, and covers most of the jobs you can apply for at the Foundation.
Sure.
Junior researchers, field operatives, containment specialists.
There you
have
are.
a decent grasp on the strangeness of your profession, but you're still locked out of the major secrets.
Very, very
Level
big
3 is a
stuff.
step up and covers most of the senior research staff, project managers, security
I
officers,
think level
response
3
team
would
members,
be,
and mobile task force
like,
operatives, all of which we'll discuss more
basically
later. Level
the
4
place
is top
where it's
secret
not
and
as
reserved for
bad.
only senior administrative
Safe,
positions,
but fun.
like site directors, security directors, or mobile task
That's
force
too high.
commanders. Finally, level 5, which gives access to every secret the Foundation holds and more.
Bad
This is
stuff.
reserved largely for the O5 Council and those working directly under them.
Right.
We're not saying it's necessarily impossible for you to get into one of those 13 seats of ultimate power, but it's probably impossible.
Yeah.
The A through E personnel class are a little easier to process.
Uh-huh.
The further along your letter is in the alphabet, the more dangerous your job.
That's
because you work in
rough.
closer proximity to anomalies.
Right.
A-class staff are considered critical to the running of the Foundation, like the O5 Council.
Sure.
So they're usually not even allowed near an anomaly. D-class, as you probably already know, are guinea pigs regularly thrown into the clutches of anomalies to see what happens. The only thing worse is E-class, which applies to agents who are already under the active effects of anomalies, and thus are quarantined.
You know,
Now
I
that
didn't
you
know
fully
about
understand the
E-class.
command structure of the SCP Foundation, we can talk
Okay.
about specific roles and what it may take to find these various job titles attached to your name.
All right.
We'll start with the lowest of the low and work our way up to the top of the pyramid, starting, of course, with D-Class. The upside of D-Class is that you don't really need any kind of qualifications to join. The majority of D-Class personnel are death row inmates. So if you commit a few capital offenses and get yourself caught, you'll likely be up for consideration.
There you go.
After all, employee turnaround for D-Class is pretty crazy, for obvious reasons.
I don't know.
The downside is that you really don't want to become a D-Class. While there are some rare examples of the lives of D-Classes
would you take
improved,
D-Class
like the
over
one who
hard
was
labor
released to pursue a law degree after being educated by SCP-5094,
at least you might get
it's
some
largely
adventures.
a literally dead-end job. But let's say you're a little luckier than that.
Alright.
The job you seek, while still dangerous, will at least get you a decent pension and dental coverage.
It's true.
We're talking about the day-to-day bread-and-butter jobs that keep the whole Foundation
like
running.
the researchers and stuff, the site staff.
If you're working on site at any of the hundreds or even thousands of secure areas the Foundation maintains across the globe, you have 4 different possible career paths.
Okay.
Containment Specialist, Researcher, Security Officer, and Tactical Response Officer.
I don't know.
Containment Specialists are, as you can probably tell from the name, experts in maintaining containment for anomalies. This career path forks into 2 possible branches. In the more active of the 2 branches, containment specialists enter zones of active anomalous activity,
like dimension exploration
for transport
and stuff.
back to the nearest operational site. To join
That's
this
a little
career
risky.
Path, you'd likely be expected to come from a military background due to the risky and tactical nature of the job.
Well trained.
The second branch is a little less hands-on. These are the actual engineers and technicians who work with researchers to devise the containment procedures for the various SCPs.
Right.
For this role, you'll not only need to likely understand physics and engineering at an expert level, you'll also need an extraordinarily creative mind.
There you go.
You'll need to think
I have
outside
one of those,
the box
but
to
I'm
keep
not an
the
engineer.
anomalies in the box. A recurring theme you'll find when it comes to Foundation jobs is that you don't seek out the Foundation for a job.
Okay.
If you're the right person and show potential, they'll find you. Researchers are a similar story. These are the best research scientists in the world, scouted by the Foundation to assist the cause. If you're someone with a true passion for science, with topics including but not limited to biology, physics, chemistry, botany, and xenobiology, and you're willing to put in the work to reach the very top of the field, the Foundation may just come knocking at your door.
Right.
Much like a lot of prestigious universities, the Foundation also sometimes considers legacy candidates. The famous Dr. Bright, for example, became a member of the Foundation's Research Corps because his mother and father worked for the Foundation, and it didn't hurt that several of his siblings were
get born into it.
Next,
instead of sworn into it.
More informally known as guards.
Right.
This job is worth applying for the paycheck alone.
You know?
As there's likely some good hazard pay
I'm
attached.
sure it's very,
Most
very
security
well,
officers
but
perform physical
you
guard
gotta
duties and are recruited from law enforcement,
You gotta just stand outside
the
the door
industry, and the military. However, the other half of the security officers work in information security, and as a result, are chosen for their IT prowess and their background in the intelligence community.
Right.
And finally, as far as site staff are concerned, we have tactical response officers. Don't expect to get this job if your background is civilian, though. Since these special operatives are the first line of defense between Foundation sites and external threats. From anomalous attackers to hostile groups of interest trying to infiltrate.
Right.
If you want this job, you'll really need to put in the hours, days, months, and years rising through the ranks in the military.
I would think.
If you do get the job, though, you'll likely be stationed at one of the larger and more important sites to remain on constant guard for any potential threats. But let's say you don't want to work on a containment site.
I couldn't be a guard,
Maybe you want to
man.
travel,
Too much
see the world,
downtime.
Get a little excitement. Thankfully, there are 2 different career paths that allow you to do just that. Field agents and the Mobile Task Force members.
You see,
the field agent position is one of the more
MTF.
accessible in the
That's
Foundation,
scary.
largely because
Field
of the fact
agent
that there are
would
so many
definitely
ways
be
in. If you're an exceptionally observant
selection
and
of
discreet
those two.
person, this job is probably for you, seeing as it's essentially being a spy for the Foundation.
Right.
You may be offered the job if you work in law enforcement, the government, or any kind of emergency service.
Just like police,
These undercover agents also infiltrate groups of interest
deal
or
with the
secret
cult.
societies the Foundation wishes to keep an eye on. Like
Serpent's
the Serpent's Hand or the Children of the Scarlet King. If you're in any of these positions or already work as a field agent for the mainstream intelligence community, Becoming a Foundation field agent may just be your calling.
Right.
Mobile task forces are a little more extreme.
Yeah.
They're made up of elite operatives drawn from all over the Foundation.
They go through
often
some
with
crazy
a heavy
stuff.
emphasis on military experience.
The best tales are
The
written
more
about
specialized
these guys
you are, the
and the
more
anomalies
likely
they
you are
face,
to
of
land a
course.
spot on one of these teams.
Right.
Are you an expert in explosives? Try for MTF Epsilon 9, the Fire Eaters. Are you an expert in epidemiology and biohazard containment? Join MTF Beta 7, dubbed the Maz Hatters.
There's a
Are you a
bunch of
benevolent anomaly
MTF
aligned with the
groups.
interests of the Foundation? MTF Alpha 9, aka
Solid
Last
bullets.
Hope, is just for you. The Foundation sometimes even recruits ex-members of enemy groups of interests into MTFs on occasion.
Yup.
Of course, despite there being plenty of ways into this profession,
Some very
none of them
talented
are
people
easy,
on
and the
in
job
other
carries huge
organizations.
risks due to how often MTFs see combat.
Right.
What if you've always wanted to be more of a leader than a follower, though? You're a natural manager, someone who has all their anomalous ducks in a row.
Okay.
Perhaps you're eyeing the role of site director, the one who all other department heads on site report directly to. How do you get your foot in the door?
The
It's
director
simple.
stuff.
Site directors start off working some other jobs
Some
for
of the
Foundation,
stories are hilarious.
like researcher or security
From
officer,
SCP animated.
and simply climb through the ranks until they reach the most senior position in the site where they work.
Right.
Oftentimes, site directors were previously very committed researchers, like Dr. Bright or Dr. Gears.
Right.
And finally, the biggest question of all. How does one become a member of the legendary O5 Council? Due to the extremely mysterious nature of the council, this one is hard to say.
Yeah.
Exact information about each member and their past is shrouded in secrecy. But it stands to reason that any new members are elected in by a majority of the pre-existing council members on the board. Like Dr. Bright's father, Adam Bright, it is theoretically possible to work your butt off and get into the O5 Council through decades of pure grit.
Wow.
But you're probably wasting your time.
Yeah.
The council works in mysterious
If that's
ways,
a goal,
after all.
right.
If we've learned anything today, it's that any job actually worth having at the SCP Foundation
not
isn't gotten easily. But hey, considering the SCP Foundation has its shadowy fingers in every pie, and its thousands of factions worldwide are masked by just as many public-facing front businesses, for all you know, you might be working for the Foundation already.
This is really good, man. I wouldn't want a Foundation job simply because I am not the type of person to seek these big thrills. You know what I mean? Like, the thought of going to work in a safe environment has always been very important to me. Getting in a situation, even as the lowest of the low level employees in a place like one of the sites, and there's a containment breach, you talking about catastrophe. You know, just imagine the SCP video that we just reacted to, the blood flies. What if a blood fly gets out? You just got bit by a mosquito at work, and now all of a sudden you might be in charge of half the world's population being destroyed because you got bit by a mosquito and you happen to just go home. The heck with that. This is pretty good though, guys. Look, SCP Explained, make sure to subscribe to him as well as a couple other videos that I reacted to. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.